If you're an account manager, you already know this. You're the one keeping the business running. You own the client relationships, drive the revenue, and solve the tough problems for your customers. But here's the challenge. Most companies don't give account managers the training or recognition they deserve. That's what you'll get here on the Account Management Secrets podcast. I'm Raymond, and after working with thousands of account managers, I know what separates the best from the rest. In this show, we cover exactly what you need to succeed, handling tough client conversations, driving renewals and upsells with confidence, and proving your value every single day. There's no fluff, no outdated sales tactics, just real practical strategies you can use right now to grow your accounts and build a successful career. If that sounds like what you've been looking for, hit subscribe and let's get into it. Welcome back to Account Management Secrets. Today, we're going to talk about customer growth, like how to grow from your existing customer base and how to reframe the paradigm that many of us hold in our minds that retention is okay. Retention is not the goal. Retention is simply part of the way that we build our goals of building long-term, highly profitable, long-lasting relationships with our best customers. But somehow, the account management industry, like all of us essentially, have convinced ourselves that the goal is to retain our clients only, that's the goal. Well, guess what? That doesn't give us growth. That gives us a flat growth curve. Retention is not a significant increase in revenue from our existing customers. And what we're going to do today is talk through that. I want to share some thoughts and ideas that I've been having on this topic of customer growth. So how we increase revenue and profits from our existing customers. This helps us to then, of course, grow the valuation of the company. And we're going to talk about why that's a really great thing for us to be focusing on, especially now in a fairly wobbly, uncertain economic time when there's lots going on. There's a lot of things that we don't know what are happening out there in the macroeconomic environment. And it therefore behooves us to spend lots of time thinking about how we grow our existing accounts. Like I said before, I've seen so many account management teams just settle for retention. They'll take it as a win. They'll say, we got the customer to continue to go with us. That's not enough these days. We're halfway through 2025. It's not enough to just retain our customers. We've got to grow them. And within that, I also see this issue that a lot of account management teams have, which is we settle for incremental growth. We settle for 5% growth, 10% growth, 20% growth, something like that, which is pretty minimal. And it's not really going to change our future in any significant way. And what I want you to think about as we go through this episode and we start this conversation is how can we reframe to start thinking about exponential growth from our customers instead of incremental growth. So to put it another way, instead of being happy with 10% growth, what would happen if we 10x'd a customer? You hopefully have listened to the incredible episode that I did with Joanna Hagelberger, where she talks about growing a single customer from $50,000 to $10 million in revenue just by asking one simple question. So that's a 200x increase in a single customer because of what she was doing and how she was strategically approaching that account. And we're going to learn from that example. I'm going to share a lot of other examples here today to help you get in the right frame of mind to think about big, ambitious 10x exponential growth from your customers instead of settling for the status quo, instead of just patting yourself on the back when you get a simple renewal. How can we change the questions that we are asking ourselves and get out there and focus on big deal growth? So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to share some thoughts that I've been putting together. I just did a training session in person with a company out in Napa, California, where we were spending time together talking about this exact concept. And the whole idea is to look at this to say, we're sitting on this gold mine. Our customers are a gold mine. And yet we're spending so much time chasing new logos and doing all this sales and marketing and top of funnel type of stuff instead of saying, how do we get even more from the customers that we currently have? And so ask yourself, if you were to reframe your thinking to say, what happens when I grow an account by 5x? Or what happens if we grow an account by 10x or even more? What would that feel like to you? What would that feel like to your team? What would that do to your bottom line? What would that do for your customer? What are all the benefits that you could provide to your customer if you did more stuff with them and for them? And what would that do to the valuation of your company? How much more valuable would your company be if that's the kind of growth that was happening within your customer base? It's all totally doable. It's all possible because companies are sitting on an enormous amount of growth potential inside the accounts they've already acquired. We've already done the work on sales, and now we can do even more from our customers. We're not talking about this as being a sales problem or a product issue or anything like that. This is about thinking and systems and leadership. So how are we going to change the way we think, change the systems that we have, and lead differently as we think much more expansively about what we can do with our accounts? So if you are a CEO, you're a founder, you're a CRO, you're the leader of a post-sales team, I want you to listen to this and think about how you can rewire yourself and your team to accomplish bigger goals with your customers. We're going to reframe what success looks like with your team. We're going to get out of some of the day-to-day tactical stuff that's keeping us stuck in low growth mode, and we are going to open this up into a much bigger potential. The system that I want to share with you, I've been calling it the AMplify 10X Growth System, or A10X for short. A10X is meant to challenge our thinking on post-sales, so everything around how we manage customers, how we do renewals, how we do account planning, how we think about growth from our customers. So this then winds up impacting our revenue, our profitability, the results that our customers are getting. It impacts how the team feels about themselves. It impacts for sure things like job satisfaction, but also we then link our work back to the bigger goals of our company. All of this is helping to improve and increase the value of our organization. So we're helping to massively grow our company because we're adopting this system. So this is a really powerful tool. It is still something that I'm working on. So consider this a first draft, if you will, of A10X, the AMplify 10X Growth System, still in development. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you like, what you don't like about this conversation today. The whole idea is let's think differently. If we win the battle in our minds, we win the battle in our mindset, that is going to percolate out into our customers and into the benefits that we're able to provide to the entire world. So with that, let me share a bit. I want to start by outlining what are these elements of the A10X system? And then I'm going to talk through those and share some examples so that you can really start to put this into action right away. Again, like I said before, we're not totally finished on this. This is something that's still in development. I still want feedback. I want to know what's working for you. So let me know when you finish this episode. Shoot me an email, find me on LinkedIn, find us on YouTube. Tell me what it is that's working for you as you start to implement the 4 arrows, as I've been calling them, of A10X, this AMplify 10X growth system. So these 4 arrows are: number 1, solve bigger problems. Number 2, radical curiosity. Number 3, be the CEO of the account. And number 4, raise the floor. So if you do these 4 things, if you change your mindset and your habits and your behaviors around these 4 arrows of A10X, you are going to get better results from your customers. You're going to get more revenue, more profits, better results for them, and your company will grow as a result of it. So let's dive into these and talk through them one by one. The first one, solve bigger problems. What's this all about? Well, we all know this issue with account managers where we get pigeonholed into small thinking. We get pigeonholed by our customers into, oh, you're the people who do this thing, like some small thing, whatever your service is or whatever your product is. Your customers automatically think that's what you do. That's all that you do. They don't see the full scope, the full context of the things that you are doing. Similarly, our behaviors as account managers and leaders, our behaviors help to further pigeonhole us because we show up and we talk to the customer about the things they've already bought from us, the things that we already know about them. And so we stay in this kind of status quo mindset, solving small, tactical, day-to-day kind of problems. If you want to build a 7-figure account, you want to build an 8-figure account, you're not going to get there continuing what you've been doing so far. You're not going to get there by just incrementally working with your customer on the things that they are currently trying to solve. So I want you to shift your mindset to say, what are the bigger things that we can address here? How can I move upstream? Like, think of it that way. If I'm solving a problem down here, how can I move upstream to solve a bigger problem for our customer? So, for example, what are the questions that I might want to ask that are going to help me uncover the actual business drivers and the real outcomes that my customer is looking for example, as opposed to just the technical requirements or the needs that are right in front of me? How can I find the actual pressure points, what's really going on for our customer? Or how can I start to talk to the executives in a different way? So get out of talking just to the day-to-day people who might be managers or directors and talk to the execs to say, what's going on in your world? These are all the elements of solving bigger problems. And, if you've got a $500,000 account, you want to turn it into a $5 million account, you're not going to get there on a linear path. It requires different thinking. It requires exponential thinking. That's what solving bigger problems is all about. And for the most part, your customers, they don't think about you when it comes to solving bigger problems. They think about you for something very specific. They've worked with you already. They've put you in a box and they're deciding the parameters of that box. If you don't go to them to challenge those assumptions and to help widen the scope, like widen the aperture of the things that they think about you for, you're going to find yourself really stuck in this box, not growing to the extent that you want. So you're really wanting to get out of the weeds and into the real business. And this is important because it helps us to reframe how we think about the account and set goals, set appropriate big goals for the customer. So this is a big deal. I am deeply indebted to some incredible thinkers on goal achievement and how to frame goals and how to think about goals. People like Dr. Benjamin Hardy, people like Dan Sullivan, people like Gay Hendricks. All of these people have really influenced my thinking on how to set goals and how to achieve them. And part of what I'm going to do here today is share some of those most important nuggets from these thinkers so that we can relate them to how we're going to grow our customers. So the first one here on Solve Bigger Problems is, let's set a big goal for our client. Like I just said, let's say I want to go from $500K to $5 million with an account. That's a 10X jump. I've got to set a big goal there. And if I want to set a big goal there, I've got to start thinking, how do I move into a transformational state with this customer? So how do I get away from the tactical thinking? What are they doing today? What does my day-to-day contact person want? I'm just going to go through some kind of plan or template type of thing with them. Like, I've got to get out of that thinking. I've got to move into more strategic thinking to say, what are the bigger problems? What's behind the why? What's behind the issue here? I've got to figure out what their leadership, executive team cares about, and I've got to implement this in a growth playbook to a certain extent. Like, that's what I've got to be doing, and then from there, I can think even bigger. What is the outcome that would really change the business trajectory for my customer? So what's the big picture that I see that I'm aware of that they may not be aware of yet? And how can I help them get there? Like, that's what I mean when I talk about transformational thinking. How can I bring my expertise to show them where they might be misaligned or they might be shooting at the wrong target, for example? How can I help them fix that? If I'm doing that, I'm automatically setting a bigger goal for myself and solving a bigger problem for my customer. Another way to think about this is, how do I get out of vendor thinking and how do I get into partner thinking? So a vendor is going to think about our product. We're going to wait for the requirements for the customer. We're going to do what the statement of work says. We're going to stay in our lane. We're going to live in that box that the customer has created for us. Instead, if we say, I want to think more like a strategic partner or a trusted advisor for my account, I want to be in the driver's seat of the car, then we're going to start to think about what are the business results that we can deliver? How can I shape and frame the customer's view of reality to help them get what they want? How can I anticipate risks and challenges that are going to be out there for them? Who can I connect them with internally, externally, at my company that's going to help them get closer to their goals? These are incredibly powerful questions and mindset to be using for yourself. Because if you do this, you're starting to elevate how you think, you're elevating how you are perceived by the customer, and you're really turning into that partner instead of being just another vendor to them. So how can you get out of 500K thinking, or even worse, 50K thinking, and start getting into $5 million thinking instead? So don't sit there and think, what features are they using? What services have they bought? How can I get them to renew? How can I get them to buy 10% more licenses or 10% more stuff from us? How can I just, slog through the next quarterly business review or anything like that? That is small thinking, limited thinking. That's the definition of 50K thinking. Instead, why don't we shift into $5 million thinking? That's 100 times difference from 50K. And think about, how can I massively grow this account? How can I get global adoption for whatever they're doing? How can I help them to double their revenue? How can I help them to cut their costs really significantly? How can I get into their boardroom? How can I support the entire executive team in their whole strategy? That is this concept of solving bigger problems. So we're setting a big goal for ourselves, and I want to help you achieve that goal. I want you to achieve that goal so that your customer benefits. When it comes to goals thinking, there's a really interesting quote by an author named Robert Brault. And what Robert Brault says is, when it comes to goals, we are kept from our goal not by obstacles, but by a clear path to a lesser goal. What does that mean? That means that we'll default to what's easy. We'll default to what's just in front of us. We'll default to doing things the way that we've always done them because that's our comfort zone. But that's not going to get us to solve bigger problems for our customer. So I want you to think about that. I want you to adopt this mindset that says, how do I get out there, solve bigger problems? That's the big goal that we can accomplish for our customer. So that's the first arrow of A10X, is solve bigger problems. The second one is radical curiosity. You've heard me mention before on this podcast that curiosity is the number one superpower of an account manager. Don't take the first answer as gospel. Dig a little bit deeper. Ask disruptive questions. Be really thoughtful when you're doing voice of customer interviews. Really investigate your customer like you're a growth detective. You're trying to figure out exactly what's going on. Because the issue is, the assumptions that you're making about the account are what are killing you. You've got all these assumptions and hypotheses in your mind, and those are slowing down your growth because you think, oh, I talked to this customer 6 months ago. I know all the answers. Oh, I've been working for them with years. I know all the answers. You think because you did this work a while ago that nothing has changed. We've got to test those assumptions. We've got to question our hypotheses. We've got to be radically curious. And it's because of that nature, because we go out there and investigate relentlessly, that's how we're going to find the opportunity to 10x our account. If I just take everything at face value, if I nod along and if I smile and say yes to whatever request the customer has, then all I'm doing is setting myself up for more of the same. I get more of the same. I get more of the same responses. I get more of the same results. And that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about how to get way better results for ourselves. And then, of course, for our customers. And this is really, really interesting. You've heard other guests on this podcast talk about the power of asking fantastic questions. People like Bob London, for example, who really want you to get smart about asking fantastic questions of your customers to understand what's really going on behind the scenes. At this point, your customers are so used to you asking the same discovery questions, the same qualifying questions over and over that they've learned to deflect them. They've learned to avoid them. You can see it in their body language. You can see it in their posture. You can see it in the way they sort of step back when you start asking these basic questions. Customers hate it. They don't want to be interrogated. And so what I want instead is I want you to be radically curious and get beyond surface level questions into more significant depth. That's where the juice is. That's where the value is. And so, imagine that we can start at the surface and we can ask some of the, kind of basic questions, things like, what's your top priority this year? Okay, great. That's a good question. It'll give you some type of idea of what the customer cares about. You may then also ask them a little bit deeper question, something like, well, where do you want to be in 3 years? Or where are you going in the next 2 to 3 years, or something like that, to get a sense for what the future might look like for them. You might further that by asking them, well, what's in your way? Like, if this is so important to you, why aren't you there now? Or why aren't you doing it? Or what is it that's the friction point happening at this very moment? Those are really great questions. And I hope you can see how each one is getting deeper and deeper and deeper as we go. You may also want to ask more disruptive questions, things like, what are we not talking about that we should be talking about? Now, that's a big question. And you don't want to just drop that on a customer that you've just building a relationship with, or someone you're meeting for the first time, or someone where you don't have the right to ask those questions. But you want to be thinking in this way, like, what are we not talking about here? What's going on behind the surface, below the surface? What's going on behind the scenes? We may also start to ask some big picture questions, like strategic stuff. What does 10X success look like for you? What does it look like for your team? Those kind of questions are going to get the customer thinking totally differently. And if we do that, then we're able to build trust, to establish some context, identify friction points. We're able to reveal the ambitions and the goals that our customers have. So all that stuff we're able to do if we're asking the right sets of questions. And so I really love this idea of radical curiosity. Go back and listen to Bob London on Account Management Secrets, because he shares some of the fantastic questions that he likes to ask. One of the ones that really stuck with me was, if I were a fly on the wall at your next board meeting or your next leadership meeting, what do you think I would hear that is the number one business priority or challenge for you right now? So what does that question do? That question allows you to understand what the C-level is talking about at your customer. It allows you different perspectives and insights so that you can see what's really going on here. What are people actually caring about? And by the way, when you ask these sorts of questions, your customer starts to perceive you differently. They no longer think of you as this vendor who shows up and talks in vendor speak to them, and you're always just looking out for the next order or the next statement of work or the next scope. Instead, what you're doing is you're asking serious questions, and you're showing that you're committed, and you're showing that you care. So I love this idea of asking great questions. There's a ton of great work in the Bob London podcast. I super highly recommend that one. But the whole idea here is, how can I show up with a true spirit of curiosity for my account? Okay, so that was the second arrow, is radical curiosity. The first one is solve bigger problems. The second one is radical curiosity. The third one is be the CEO of the account, or something I'm starting to think of more as ownership mindset. The idea here is, you're not like above your customer. You're not just sort of providing advice to them from on high. I want you to be thinking like you're an owner of the account, like you are an investor in your customer's success. Now, we know for sure that we succeed only when our customers succeed. So we know that to be true. But I want us to go deeper here. I want us to be even more radical in our thinking. And I want you to think as though you are an owner of your account. So maybe you're not the full owner, but you're the CEO or you're an investor in this company. What that does is that immediately changes how you think about this. So whatever you're trying to sell, whatever you're working with on your for the customer, you're not thinking now about some tactical thing, just getting the next order, just getting the next thing in place. You're thinking, hey, what's going on here? How can I really help this company to succeed? It's like you're running a business. The business just happens to be inside someone else's company. And you therefore are totally aligned with their success. You want to proactively come to them with risks and issues that might appear. You want to be saying, here's exactly what I would be doing. And you want to be speaking from your heart about that. You want to be totally aligned with your customer's goals. So there's no us versus them. It's instead, here's how we are succeeding together. That's what we are doing. So you care about delivering value for your customer. You care about anticipating problems and issues. You care about giving them absolutely the best service so that they can succeed. If you do this well, then you're going to find your customers pay attention. They notice, they feel this. They can tell that you are 100% on the same side of the table as they are. And so you might ask yourself, if you put on this ownership mindset, or if you are the CEO of the account, like I said, I'm still not 100% sure what we're going to call this one. But if I do that, I'm anticipating stuff. And here's some other questions that I might be asking myself. I might say, well, where could I push this customer to grow even more? Right? So where do I see opportunities that they may not be aware of yet, that I want to guide them toward, that I want to make them aware of? I might tell them, hey, here's some risks that are coming up, or here are things that you need to be thinking about in the future. I might be guiding them toward a kind of a bigger strategic bet. Like, here's what we know about the industry. Here's what we know what's going on. Like, consider this. I might be, doing things that are going to put me in much better position to have an executive level conversation with my customer, as opposed to just talking to my day-to-day tactical contacts. So you're acting like the success of the customer is up to you, because to a large part it is, right? That you own the outcome. You have responsibility for this. You have an accountability for their success. And so the main idea is just like, ask yourself, if this was my company, what would I want them to do next? If this was my company, what would I not want them to be doing? We've all sat in hundreds of meetings where we're sitting there saying, oh, the customer should do this, the customer shouldn't do that. And we're going back and forth. And then when it comes time to tell the customer, we don't. We don't give them that level of candor. We don't give them that level of authenticity. And what I'm saying here is, I want you to think like you are an owner of your customer's company, and you want 100% what's best for them. So that's something I want you to be doing. That's the third arrow of A10X. It's be the CEO of the account, or the ownership mindset. The fourth one is raise the floor. And this is very uncomfortable for some people. Raise the floor is based on the work of Dr. Benjamin Hardy. He wrote 10X is easier than 2X. He wrote that with Dan Sullivan. He's written another book very recently called The Science of Scaling. And one of the big parts of how to achieve an impossible goal, or how to achieve a really big 10X goal for your customer, is by reframing what you do. So let's talk about raise the floor and how this applies to you in the post-sales and account management world. Ben Hardy says the fastest way to move forward in life is not doing more. It's with stopping the behaviors that are holding you back. So what this means is we need to be doing fewer of the dumb things that are essentially a tax on our work, and that take our energy and then take our time and that waste our output. We need to be doing less of that stuff and more of the important stuff. That's what raise the floor means. Raise the floor means, where can I delegate things? Where can I stop doing things? Where can I just focus on my particular abilities? So call it your unique ability, call it your zone of genius, call it your life's work. How do I spend more time doing that and less time doing all the other stuff that is holding me back and keeping me from my goal? That's what raise the floor means. It's a little bit delicate because we all work in environments where we have to do things like internal meetings and update the CRM and prepare dashboards and build QBR decks. We do a lot of stuff that is not directly linked to our goal. And what I am inviting you to do is I'm inviting you to reframe how you think about your work and to refocus on what's most impactful for you. You all know the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. You know that 20% of your efforts generate 80% of your results. Well, guess what? The flip side of that is also true. 80% of your efforts will also lead to only 20% of your results, which means you're wasting 4 days a week, essentially 80% of your work week, doing things that are not valuable. If we really are committed to significant customer growth, to growing 5x, 10x, 200x with our customers, we're going to have to change how we work. We're going to have to change what we focus on. We're going to have to change how we think. And so raise the floor simply means protect your energy, protect your time, say no more. Don't just show up to that internal meeting that you're going to be a passive participant at. Find ways to maximize your time. Do the things that are absolutely highest impact. Don't do the things that are low impact. By the way, there's a lot of things that I would put in the high impact category that account managers will disagree with me on. Like I will put QBRs and account planning very squarely in the high impact category. You do those well, those will drive your success. Do not think of those as administrivia or homework. That is not it. But there's a lot of other stuff that you're doing, including wasting time all day scrolling on Instagram or LinkedIn, that is not in pursuit of your goal. So a big part of this raise the floor conversation is how much discipline do you have for yourself? How much discipline do you have to actually get the goal that you are looking for? How much discipline do you have to truly build the career that you want? And this all starts with how you manage your time and your energy. So raise the floor means looking at all the stuff you're doing on a weekly basis, figuring out what do you need to stop doing, what can you delegate, what do you need to continue doing, what do you need to change, and then sticking to it. This might lead to some uncomfortable conversations with your team or with your boss. It might mean that you need to restructure and bring in different people to handle different things within your company. But you need to think about this as, what do I do to get the big goal done? How do I focus on the things that are really going to move the business forward for me and for my customers? So that's raise the floor. It will change your behavior if you do this well. It will change your behavior. It means that you're no longer spending time entering data into the CRM. You're no longer doing as much research yourself. You are outsourcing that to a different department. You're getting help from your team. You're leaning on the RevOps group, for example. There are lots of ways for you to do more of the stuff that you're really good at and less of the things that you're not good at. I know that all account managers are great at building relationships with their customers. They like solving problems. They like brainstorming. They love meeting their customers and building relationships and building connections to go out there and get stuff done. And I want you to spend more time doing that and less time doing all the other low value activities. So those are the 4 elements of A10X, the AMplify 10X Growth System. It was solve bigger problems, radical curiosity, ownership mindset, AKA be the CEO of the account, and then raise the floor. If you do these 4 things, your results are going to change. You're going to get better relationships with your customers. You're going to get more revenue for them. You're going to drive more profitability. You're going to drive more value inside your company and for your customer. And the way that these map into, for example, solving bigger problems means increasing your impact. Radical curiosity means changing and improving your attitudes or how you're showing up for your customers. Be the CEO of the account is about the strategy that you have, and raising the floor is about managing your energy and your talents. So I think this is a really fun system. I hope you got something out of this discussion of A10X. The system is still evolving. It is not perfect, but this is something that I'm going to continue to talk about more in the coming weeks and months. I believe it has the potential to rewire how teams go after growth within their existing accounts and do it in a way that really finds big, untapped, exponential impact. So if you are leading a team, if you are leading an organization, or if you are out there as an individual contributor, as an account manager, I would love to hear, what did you like about this? What resonates? What didn't work? Where do you want to push back? Where do you want to challenge my thinking? Because I think that together we can all make this something really, really interesting. So tell me via email or on social media, what's working, what's getting in the way. This is a great example of the type of thing that we are doing inside of the AMplify community, right? AmplifyAM.com is the website. This is our community for account managers, account directors, customer success teams, and post-sales leaders who are wanting to play at a higher level. This is exactly the kind of thing that we're doing. We are co-creating the future. We are changing people's approach. We're changing people's mindsets, and we're getting way better results because of this. So this is all part of a bigger conversation around, have we been thinking about post-sales all wrong? Is this whole model broken? Do we need to start back over from square one in order to really make this work for all of us? That's part of the conversation. I would love for us to figure it out together. So if this resonates with you, come join us inside of AMplify. Join the conversation. Share this episode out. Tell me what works, what didn't. Thanks so much for joining me here today, and we'll see you again next week on Account Management Secrets.